I was supposed to be in Evansville until Thursday. That was the plan when I left Louisville on Monday morning, with 2 technicians, a laptop full of service reports, and a replacement control module the customer had been waiting on for almost 3 weeks. By Wednesday, just after lunch, the problem was fixed. The line was running again, and the plant manager was so relieved he signed the completion sheet without making us sit through the usual end of job meeting. My technicians wanted to grab food before heading home. I told them to go ahead. I had enough coffee in me to make the drive. I texted Dana that the job had gone better than expected, but I didn't tell her I was already on the road. There was no reason to. She thought I'd be back sometime Thursday afternoon, and after 21 years of marriage, surprising my wife by walking through the door a day early did not strike me as a dangerous idea. Most of the drive home, I thought about Nashville. My company had spent the last month asking whether I would take a 6-month assignment there to stabilize a new regional service operation. The money was good, about 15% more while I was on the project, furnished housing, mileage back to Louisville, and a real chance to move into a larger management role afterward. Dana had been more excited about it than I was. 6 months is nothing, she'd told me the first time I brought it up. The kids are grown. When are you ever going to get another chance to do something just for your career? She wasn't wrong. Hannah was 22 and living on her own. Logan was 19 and halfway through his second year of college. Nobody needed me home every afternoon to drive to practice or help with homework anymore. Still, I had not said yes. My boss, Greg, wanted an answer by Monday. I was thinking about that when I turned onto our street and saw the moving truck. At first, I assumed the Kellers 2 houses down were finally leaving. They had been talking about downsizing for a year. Then I saw the truck was in my driveway. A man in a gray work shirt came through my front door, carrying a cardboard box. Behind him, another mover backed out of the house with my office chair. I slowed so hard the pickup behind me leaned on its horn. The chair was black leather with one cracked armrest. I had owned it for 9 years. Nobody else on the street had one like it. I pulled into the curb, left my suitcase in the car, and walked up the driveway. The first mover had already disappeared back inside. The second was rolling my chair toward the ramp. "Stop." He looked at me, "Sir, that chair is mine." He glanced toward the house as if expecting someone else to explain me. I pointed at the open front door. "Actually, everything coming out of that house is mine or belongs to my family." "Who hired you?" A third man stepped down from the truck holding a tablet. He was older than the other two and wore a company polo instead of a work shirt. "You live here." "I am Mark Ellison." He checked the screen. His expression changed slightly. "Mark Ellison. That is what I just said." He turned the tablet toward himself again. The order was placed by Dana Ellison, my wife. "Okay, what?" He looked from me to the open garage, where I could now see 3 plastic storage bins, a box of books, my red steel toolbox, and 2 garment boxes lined up near the door. Inside the house, the place looked as if somebody had started erasing me. My desk was gone from the small office off the living room. Half the bookshelves were empty. The framed photograph of Logan and me at his first Bengals game had been taken off the wall and wrapped in brown paper. My winter coats were missing from the hall closet. I walked back outside. "Where is this stuff going?" The supervisor looked down at his tablet. "Storage facility on Preston Highway." "Which storage facility?" He gave me the name. I had never heard of it. "I am not moving." He paused. "I understand." "No, I don't think you do. I am not moving. I did not authorize my belongings to be removed from this house." He raised a hand, calm and professional. "That is fine. We'll stop until the customer clears it up. I am the customer. The order is under Mrs. Ellison, and I am Mr. Ellison, standing here telling you not to move my property." That settled it. He told the 2 movers to bring my chair back inside and stop loading. I should have felt better. I didn't. I stood in the driveway and watched one of them roll my office chair back toward the house, while my mind tried to build an explanation that didn't sound insane. Dana knew I was considering Nashville. Maybe she thought she was helping. Maybe she had rented storage because the furnished apartment would be small. Maybe she had misunderstood something I said. None of those explanations accounted for my family photographs, or the toolbox, or the fact that she had done this while I was out of town. The supervisor made a few taps on his tablet. Looks like we have to call the office anyway. Why? I thought this was phase one. I stared at him. What does that mean? He scrolled. We're scheduled back here Saturday for the inbound move. I felt something cold settle behind my ribs. Whose inbound move? He hesitated, which told me he had finally realized. This wasn't a normal scheduling question. Then he read the name. Eric Vaughn. I had never heard of him. Who is Eric Vaughn? I couldn't tell you. What is being delivered? Household goods. Bedroom furniture. Living room furniture. Boxes standard apartment move. From where? He gave me an address in St. Matthews. I knew the complex. Expensive apartments. Mostly professionals and divorced people who didn't want yard work. I looked at my house. Then at my office chair being pushed back through my front door. Then at the stranger's name on the moving order. Call my wife. The supervisor nodded. He stepped away to make the call. I stayed in the driveway. By then, Nashville had dropped out of my thoughts. All I could think about was Eric Vaughn. Dana arrived 22 minutes later. I know because I watched the clock on the microwave while the movers stood around outside, and I put my office back together badly enough to make it obvious somebody else had taken it apart. At first, I heard her car. Then I heard two doors close. I went to the front window. Dana came up the walk quickly, carrying her purse and wearing the beige slacks and dark green blouse she usually wore to work. A man followed her. He was about my age, maybe a year older, tall, gray at the temples, dressed in dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked directly at the moving truck. Then he looked at me through the open door. He stopped walking. Dana didn't. She came inside and said, "Why did you stop the movers?" Not hello. Not why are you home. Not what happened in Evansville. Why did you stop the movers? I looked at her for a few seconds. I live here. I know that. Good. I wanted to make sure we had at least one fact in common. Her eyes narrowed. Mark, don't do this. Do what? Make a scene. I glanced past her at the man still standing near the front step. Who is he? She closed her eyes for half a second. That was enough. The man came inside. Dana? She turned sharply. Eric. Give us a minute, he looked at me instead. You told me he wasn't coming back until tomorrow. That sentence did more than the truck had. Dana's face went tight. I said, so you are Eric. He nodded slowly. I am Eric Vaughn. You are moving into my house Saturday. His eyebrows pulled together. Dana stepped between us, not physically blocking either of us, but trying to take control of the space. Mark, you were going to Nashville. I was considering Nashville. You told me you were probably taking it. Probably isn't a lease. Probably isn't a moving order. Eric looked at Dana. I thought this was already settled. She said his name like a warning. Eric, he ignored it. You told me this was already settled. I looked at him. Settled what? Nobody spoke outside. One of the movers slid the truck door shut. The sound echoed through the entryway. Eric looked at Dana again, then back at me. Your separation. I let out one short laugh. It was an amusement. My brain just had nowhere sensible to put what he'd said. What separation? Dana started talking fast. Mark, we have been unhappy for a long time. You know that. We had dinner together Sunday. People who are unhappy still eat dinner. I slept beside you Sunday night. Eric's head turned toward her. I kept looking at him. Actually, I slept beside my wife 3 nights ago. His mouth opened slightly. Dana said, that doesn't mean what you are making it mean. I turned to her. What am I making it mean? She folded her arms. We have been disconnected for years. That is not what he thought I asked. Eric stepped farther into the room. Dana told me you two had already agreed you were done. We never had that conversation. Mark, I held up a hand. Number, you got 21 years. He gets 5 minutes. Dana stared at me. Eric rubbed his jaw. He looked less confident now than when he had arrived. I knew you were married, he said. I am not going to pretend I didn't, but I was told the marriage was over in everything except paperwork. I was told you wanted Nashville. You were taking the assignment, and that this week was basically the physical separation. His eyes shifted to Dana. How long what? How long have you been sleeping with my wife? Dana inhaled sharply. Eric didn't answer right away. I knew before he did. Almost a year. The room got quiet. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Dana spoke. It hasn't been a year. Eric turned toward her. 11 months is almost a year. That detail mattered to him. The lie mattered more than protecting her. I looked at Dana. 11 months. She sat down on the arm of the sofa. Her face looked tired suddenly, but not surprised. That bothered me more than tears would have. She had rehearsed this. Maybe not today. Maybe not with a moving truck still outside and me standing in the entryway. But some version of this conversation had been coming, and she had prepared her side. I was going to tell you, she said. When? When things were settled. I looked toward the driveway. They seemed pretty settled. She flinched. That is not fair. I laughed once. There is that word. Mark, we haven't been happy. Then why was I the last person to get the schedule? Eric looked down. Dana stood. I didn't plan for you to find out like this. I was going to tell you when you got home tomorrow. I thought having the office packed would make Monday easier. I stared at her. You put my life in storage before I had even said yes. I was trying to make the transition easier. You planned for me not to be here. Because you were supposed to be working. Because you thought I'd be gone by Monday. She shook her head. You are twisting everything. Am I? I pointed toward the truck. My things go into storage Wednesday. His things come in Saturday. I go to Nashville Monday. Tell me which part I twisted. She had no answer. Eric did. My lease ends Saturday. Dana was at my place helping me pack when the movers called. I looked at him. He shoved his hands into his pockets. I have to be out by noon. That was when the full shape of it finally landed. This wasn't a vague plan. It had dates. My office packed Wednesday. Eric out of his apartment Saturday. Eric in my house Saturday. Me gone Monday. Dana had not simply imagined a future without me. She had built a transition schedule. I asked the next question because suddenly it was the only one that mattered. Who else thinks I am moving? Dana's face changed. Not much. Just enough. Eric saw it too. He looked at her. I said, Who else? Dana. Don't drag other people into this. That wasn't my question. She exhaled. Hannah knows you were considering Nashville. Considering. She knows you were leaning toward it. Who told her I was leaning toward it? You were. I told her I had an offer. Dana's voice sharpened. Mark, stop cross-examining me. I wasn't cross-examining her. I was trying to find out how much of my life had already been explained to other people without me. Eric backed toward the door. Dana noticed. Where are you going? I need to go. No, you don't. He looked at her. Yeah, I do. Eric, don't make this worse. He gave her a look I recognized even though I had never met the man before. It was the look of somebody realizing the story he bought came with missing pages. He pointed toward me. You told me he knew. Dana said nothing. You told me Hannah knew. Dana's silence got longer. He walked out. She went after him. I didn't. I stood in the living room, listening to their voices outside. I couldn't hear all of it, just enough to know Dana was trying to keep him from leaving. That hurt in a clean way. There was no confusion in it. My wife had just been forced to choose who to follow out the door, and it wasn't me. A few minutes later, Eric drove away. Dana came back inside alone. The movers were still waiting. I walked outside and told the supervisor to put everything back in the house. He looked relieved to finally have a clear instruction. Dana followed me. Mark? I kept walking. We need to talk. We just did. No, we didn't. We fought. We didn't even get to the fight. She grabbed my arm. I stopped and looked down at her hand. She let go. I wasn't trying to humiliate you. What were you trying to do? Make a terrible situation easier. For who? For everyone. That answer stayed with me, because it sounded reasonable until I remembered whose desk was sitting on a moving blanket in my driveway. The movers finished an hour later. My office was a mess. The desk was back in the wrong place. One shelf was crooked. A lampshade had been crushed. Nothing important was broken. That almost made it worse. Dana's plan had been neat. Careful. Professional. A man with a tablet. A storage address. an inbound move scheduled for Saturday. She had treated the end of our marriage like a logistics problem. Once the truck left, she tried again. Sit down. I stayed standing. She sat at the kitchen table. For years, that table had been where we solved things. College bills, my mother's surgery, Hannah's first apartment. Logan wanting to change majors. Dana put both hands around a coffee mug she hadn't filled. I know this looks awful. It looks organized. Mark, how long have you been telling people I am leaving? She stared at the table. I haven't been telling people you are leaving. You told Eric. That is different. You told Hannah. I told Hannah you were considering Nashville. You told her more than that. Dana's mouth tightened. I told her we were having problems. Were we? She looked up at me like I had asked something stupid. Of course we were. Enough that our daughter thought we'd agreed to separate. Number enough that Eric thought we'd agreed to separate. She looked away. I sat down across from her. Who else? My parents know things haven't been great. What things? That you've been working a lot. That we've been distant. Who else? A couple of people. Names? She sighed. Melissa knows. Melissa and her husband had spent Thanksgiving at our house 2 years in a row. Who else? Tom and Rebecca know we've been having issues. I almost smiled. We had dinner with Tom and Rebecca last month. That doesn't mean I can't talk to my friends. Number, it means I apparently went to dinner with people who already thought my marriage was ending. She pushed back from the table. This is exactly why I didn't tell you sooner. I stared at her. Because I would ask questions. Because you make everything into a problem to solve. That was the first thing she said that actually sounded like something she had felt for a long time. You manage everybody. Work, the house, the kids, me. I didn't schedule a moving truck for you. She looked away again. I let the silence sit. Then I asked, why Nashville? What do you mean? You've been pushing that job harder than I have. Why? Because it is a good opportunity. That is all. Yes. I had no proof that answer was false. But after 11 months with another man, a moving truck, and a Saturday delivery order, good opportunity was too small an answer. She saw I didn't believe her. Mark, you really should take it. I almost admired that. Not 24 hours after being caught, she was still trying to move me to Tennessee. It pays more. It is temporary. You said Greg thinks it could lead somewhere. You remember all of that. Of course I do. I am your wife. The sentence hung there between us. I stood. I need to get out of here. Where are you going? I don't know. You can't just leave. I looked back at her. That is a remarkable sentence for you to say today. I drove for almost 2 hours. No destination. No plan. I ended up in a parking lot near the river with a cold coffee. I didn't remember buying. I did not call Hannah. I did not call Logan. I did not call Eric. I called Greg. He answered on the second ring. Ellison, you back early? Yeah, everything good in Evansville. Job's done. Then I get to bother you about Nashville. I looked through the windshield at the water. What happens if I say no? He paused. I give it to Ramirez. And after that, Ramirez gets the exposure you would have gotten. Meaning the next regional role might go to him. Quote, will it? I am not going to lie to you, Mark probably helps him. I closed my eyes. This mattered. I had spent 23 years in industrial service, 14 of them with this company. I had started turning wrenches, and now managed 41 technicians across 3 states. I wasn't desperate for another title, but I had earned the right to think about one. Greg said, you don't have to decide right this second. When do you need it? Monday morning at the absolute latest. Give me until tomorrow. Fair. I hung up. For the next half hour, I sat there thinking about why I wanted to say no. If it was only to hurt Dana, then she was right about one thing. I would be burning a career opportunity because of her affair. But that wasn't the whole reason. I also wasn't willing to spend the first 6 months of a collapsing marriage 3 hours away while everyone else decided what came next. Going to Nashville now would do more than move me for 6 months. It would validate a story I had never agreed to. Mark wanted the assignment. Mark left. Mark chose work. Mark and Dana were already over. Eric came later. Nice and clean. Everyone could be disappointed, but nobody had to look directly at what Dana had done. Then I thought about Dana telling me I really should take Nashville. The next morning I called Greg at 8:11. I am out. He was quiet for a beat. You sure? Yeah. You want to tell me why? Family situation changed. Bad. Pretty bad. I'm sorry. He exhaled. I'll call Ramirez. I understand. Mark, just so you know, I can't promise this opportunity circles back. I know. You'd have been good at it. That one hurt. Thanks. When the call ended, I sat at my desk for a long time. The same desk Dana had tried to put into storage 24 hours earlier. One corner had a new gouge in it from the move. I ran my thumb over it. Then, I went to work. I didn't tell Dana. That evening, she was in the kitchen when I came home. She acted cautious, almost polite. How was work? Fine. Did you talk to Greg? I looked at her. About what? Nashville. Not really. That wasn't technically true and I didn't enjoy saying it, but I wanted to hear what she did next. You should call him tomorrow. Why? Because you said he needed an answer. He has got time. Dana opened the refrigerator, stared into it without taking anything out, then closed it again. Mark, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But don't throw away your career over this. 11 months, a moving truck, a man scheduled to move into my house over this. I'll keep that in mind. She nodded, as if I had accepted advice. She was still talking to the version of me who would absorb the problem, cool down, make the practical choice, and keep everybody from getting hurt too badly. I didn't know what I was going to become after that week. I only knew I wasn't going to be that man for her anymore. Friday morning, Eric called me. I nearly let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. Mark. What do you want? 10 minutes. For what? Coffee. Public place. I need to ask you a few things. I am not helping you manage your relationship with my wife. I know, do you? There was a pause. Probably not as well as I thought. That got my attention. We met at a coffee shop near Hurstburn Parkway. Eric was already there. He looked worse than he had Wednesday. Not devastated. Just unsettled. I sat across from him. He didn't waste time. When did Dana tell you the marriage was over? She didn't. I mean before this week. Never. He looked down at his cup. She told me you two had talked about separating last spring. Number. She said the Nashville thing was your idea. She said you wanted it. I considered it. He studied my face. You still haven't accepted it. Number. I didn't tell him I had rejected it. Not yet. He leaned back. She told me you were the one pushing for change. Sounds efficient. His face tightened. I am not asking you to like me. Good. I knew she was married. That is on me. But I would not have agreed to move into your house if I thought you believed you were still married. I stared at him. You were sleeping with my wife, I know. You want credit because you drew the line at furniture. Number, at least he had enough sense not to defend himself. He looked out the window. She said something about you a lot. I waited. That you don't blow up your life. I felt something turn over in my chest. What? She said you get mad, but you fix things. You don't make emotional decisions. Her exact words were, he doesn't blow up his life. That is not who he is. I remembered Dana telling me not to throw away my career. I remembered the storage unit. She knows me well. Eric looked at me carefully. Does she? I didn't answer. He rubbed both hands over his face. My lease ends tomorrow. I know, so I have to move my stuff somewhere tomorrow. That is also your problem. I understand. Do you? He almost smiled, but didn't. I guess that is the theme of the week. We sat there another minute. Then he asked, Are you leaving Sunday? I looked at him. Asked Dana. He didn't like that answer. Good. When I got home that afternoon, Dana already knew Eric and I had spoken. She was waiting in the living room. What did you tell him? Which truth? Which truth? I stared at her. Interesting question. Mark, I am trying to keep this from becoming uglier than it already is. You scheduled a replacement husband. Her face hardened. Don't call him that. What should I call the man scheduled to move into my bedroom tomorrow? He is not moving into your bedroom. Which bedroom did you assign him? She folded her arms. You know what I mean. Number, I am finding out I know very little about what you mean. She started to walk away, then stopped. Hannah is upset. I felt my stomach drop. What did you tell her? I told her we're having problems. What did you tell her about Eric? Enough. What did you tell her about Nashville? Dana turned around. I told her you were considering changing your mind. I looked at her. I haven't told you what I am doing. You don't have to. I know you. That was almost funny now. She grabbed her purse. I'm going to see Hannah. Because one of us needs to make sure she doesn't hear this in pieces. Meaning your pieces? She opened the door. Meaning I am her mother. Then she left. Hannah called me less than 2 hours later. She did not say hello. Are you really thinking about backing out of Nashville just to punish Mom? For a second, I couldn't speak, not because I was surprised Dana had gone there, because my daughter sounded as if the answer might change what she thought of me. Hannah, did Mom tell you I had accepted it? She said you were going. That is not what I asked. Dad, I don't want to get in the middle of this. Then don't. You are both putting me in the middle. I stood at the kitchen counter, staring at the dark backyard. Okay, 3 facts. She sighed. Dad, 3. Then you can decide what you want to do with them. Silence. I never accepted Nashville. Another silence. Your mother scheduled movers to remove my belongings from the house Wednesday while I was out of town. Hannah didn't speak. And there is another move scheduled for tomorrow under Eric Vaughn's name. What? That is all I am giving you. Mom said his lease is ending, and he needs somewhere to put his stuff. Then ask her where the movers were told to deliver it. She was quiet long enough that I knew she was thinking. Mom says there is more to it. There probably is. What does that mean? It means you should ask her. Dad, I can't do this. You don't have to choose between us. My voice cracked slightly, and I hated that it did. I steadied it. Just don't let anyone choose the facts for you. She said nothing. Then, quieter, I need to go. The call ended. I put the phone down and stayed at the counter. I had spent years thinking one of the rewards of raising children, well, was that eventually they became adults who could understand you. I was learning that adult children were still your children. They still wanted a world where their parents made sense. Dana had gotten to Hannah first, because she understood that better than I did. Friday evening, Dana tried one more time. She waited until after dinner, when the house was quiet. Logan had called from school earlier. I hadn't told him anything beyond the fact that his mother and I were having serious problems. Dana hadn't reached him yet, or if she had, he wasn't saying. She sat across from me in the living room. We need to be adults about tomorrow. Tomorrow is already booked. That is not funny. I wasn't joking. She clasped her hands. Eric's lease ends tomorrow. His furniture has to go somewhere. Storage exists. You taught me that Wednesday. Her mouth tightened. He has already paid the movers. Then he should use them. Mark, listen to me. I know what I did was wrong. That was the first time she had said it that plainly. But if we turn every practical issue into a moral battle, we're going to destroy ourselves. We. You know what I mean. Number I don't anymore. She leaned forward. You are going to Nashville. You will have a furnished place. You'll be back some weekends. We can take time. We can figure out the house. We can figure out the kids. Eric does not have to sleep in our bedroom. Nobody has to do anything dramatic. She said it, so calmly that for one strange second I could see the world she had imagined. I left. She stayed. Eric entered carefully. Nobody made too much noise. Months passed. People adjusted. Eventually the divorce became paperwork attached to a decision everyone had already learned to live with. It was almost elegant. All it required was my cooperation. Dana looked at me. What time are you leaving Sunday? I let the question sit between us. Then I said, I am not. She blinked. What? I am not leaving Sunday. Mark, don't be ridiculous. I turned Nashville down Thursday morning. The color left her face. Number yes, you can't. I already did. Greg needed you. He found somebody else. Why would you do that? Because it was my decision. She stood. What about Monday? I almost laughed. What about it? What about the apartment? What about everything we've arranged? There it was. Not what about your career. Not what about the money. What about everything we've arranged? I looked at her. Who is we? Her mouth opened, then closed. She reached for her phone. Who are you calling? She didn't answer. I didn't need her to. Eric picked up. I could hear his voice faintly through the speaker before she turned away. No, Dana said. He is not going. Silence. Long enough that even from across the room, I could feel it. Dana walked into the kitchen and lowered her voice. I stayed where I was. Outside. The driveway was empty. Saturday was less than 12 hours away. I woke before 6 Saturday morning in the spare room. I had slept there since Wednesday. For a few seconds, I had the familiar feeling that comes when your brain has not caught up with your life yet. The room was dark. The house was quiet. Then I remembered the moving truck. The second one. I got up without waking her, showered, made coffee, and stood at the kitchen window while the sky turned from black to gray over the backyard. At 7:30, Dana came downstairs already dressed. Hannah is coming at 9, she said. I looked at her over my coffee. Why? Because we need to talk as a family. Hannah isn't our marriage counselor. She is our daughter, exactly. Dana opened a cabinet harder than necessary. She is upset, Mark. You can't just give her 3 facts and act like that settles everything. I didn't say it settled anything. You made me sound like I was throwing you into the street. You hired movers while I was out of town. Because I thought you were leaving Monday, you keep saying that as if it makes the sentence better. She turned to face me. I know you are enjoying this. That surprised me enough that I laughed. Enjoying what? Watching everything fall apart because you finally have the moral high ground. I put the mug down. I came home Wednesday and found my office on a truck. You know what I mean? No, Dana. I don't know what you mean anymore. She looked toward the front window. Eric's movers are coming at 10. So the second truck was still coming, not if, at 10. Then I guess Hannah is getting the full family meeting. Dana stared at me. Don't you dare turn this into some kind of performance. I didn't book either truck. She said nothing. That sentence had become inconvenient for her. Hannah arrived at 9:12. She came in through the garage like she had since high school, carrying a coffee and looking as if she had slept badly. She hugged her mother first. Then she looked at me. Hi, Dad. Hi. No hug. That hurt, but I tried not to show it. Dana suggested we sit at the kitchen table. I almost refused simply because I was tired of that table becoming the place where Dana explained decisions she had already made. But Hannah sat down. So I did too. For 20 minutes. Dana tried to explain that our marriage had been struggling for years without giving Hannah details. I reminded her that I had never agreed we were separated. Hannah finally held up both hands. Can you both stop? We did. She looked at her mother. Is Eric moving in today? Dana took a breath. His lease ends today. He has to move his things somewhere. That wasn't my question. I said nothing. Dana looked at me as if I had somehow taught Hannah the sentence. He was going to stay here temporarily while your father was in Nashville. But Dad isn't going to Nashville. So is he moving in? Dana rubbed her forehead. I don't know what is happening today. That, at least, I believed. At 9:58, a diesel engine slowed in front of the house. Nobody moved. The truck backed into the driveway with a warning beep loud enough to fill the kitchen. Hannah looked toward the window. Dana closed her eyes. I stayed in my chair. A man in a red moving company polo came up the walk and rang the bell. Dana stood. Hannah followed her. I followed Hannah. The mover had a clipboard in one hand. Eric Vaughn. He is not here yet, Dana said. Okay, we can stage it until he gets here. Same address, right? He read our house number. Dana said, yes. Hannah looked at her. The mover turned and waved to the truck. The back door rolled up. The first thing I saw was a mattress wrapped in plastic. Then a dark wood bed frame. Then boxes. A sofa, 2 leather chairs. A dining set. It was not a few things that needed somewhere to sit for a weekend. It was a household. Hannah stepped onto the porch. Mom, Dana spoke quietly. His apartment is empty after today. Mom, I know how it looks. How else does it look? Dana glanced at me. I still said nothing. A black SUV turned onto our street. Eric parked behind the truck. He got out slowly. If he had looked unsettled at the coffee shop, he looked miserable now. He saw Hannah. Then he looked at Dana. You said she knew. Hannah heard him. Knew what? Dana's face tightened. Eric, not now. The mover with the clipboard looked between all of us. Mr. Vaughn, we need to know where you want the bedroom set. Nobody answered. He tried again. Is the king going upstairs? Hannah turned to her mother. You told me his stuff was just being stored here, Dana said. It can be stored here. The mover looked confused. In the bedroom. I looked away before my face said something. I didn't want Hannah to read. Eric walked toward the truck. Hold up. The mover stopped, Eric said. Nothing comes off. Dana stepped toward him. Eric. He ignored her and looked at the foreman. Can you change the destination? Sure. There'll be an additional charge depending on mileage. Fine. Where to? Eric pulled out his phone. I'll give you a storage address. Dana grabbed his arm. You can't do this now. Eric looked down at her hand and then at her. Apparently everybody keeps finding out what they've already agreed to. She let go. Hannah stared at both of them. What does that mean? Eric looked at her. For a second, I thought he might apologize. Instead, he said, it means your mother and I need to talk. Dana snapped. Don't put this on me. He actually stepped back. I am not putting all of it on you. I knew you were married. That is on me. But you told me Mark knew you were done. You told me he had accepted Nashville. You told me Hannah understood. Hannah's face changed. Dana said, I said she would understand. Number, you said she did. Eric, I am not moving into this house today. The words landed harder than I expected. Dana looked at him as if he had broken a contract. What am I supposed to do? Eric gave a tired laugh. That is the problem, Dana. Every answer you gave me started with what Mark was supposed to do. The foreman shifted his weight. Sir, I do need an address. Eric nodded. Give me 5 minutes. He walked back toward his SUV. Dana followed him. Hannah stayed on the porch. The truck idled in front of us. After a while she said, You knew this was coming. Yes, and you didn't tell me this morning. I told you yesterday there was another move scheduled. You knew it was all of this. I knew the order said household goods. She looked at the open truck again. I thought Mom meant boxes. So did you want me to tell you what to think before you saw it? She shook her head. Then she sat down on the porch step. I sat beside her. Inside the truck, one of the movers leaned against a sofa and checked his phone, waiting for us to decide what happened to his Saturday. Hannah said, Mom told me you were basically gone already. I wasn't. I know that now. I stared at the driveway. That is enough for today. She looked at me. I still don't want to pick sides. I don't want you to. Mom thinks you do. Your mother thinks a lot of things for other people. The sentence came out sharper than I intended. Hannah flinched. I regretted it immediately. Sorry. She nodded. A few minutes later, Eric returned to the truck and gave the mover an address. The foreman confirmed it twice. Then the truck pulled away without unloading a single piece. Eric walked to his SUV. Dana hurried after him. He opened the driver's door. She stood between him and the door. I couldn't hear all of it. I heard her say, We planned this. I heard him say, You planned around him. Then Dana's voice rose. Where are you going to sleep? My brother has a guest room. What about us? Eric looked toward the house. For one uncomfortable second, our eyes met. Then he told Dana, Don't call me tonight. He got into the SUV and left. Dana stood in the street long after he was gone. Hannah went home before noon. She hugged me that time. It was quick. It still mattered. Dana came inside furious. You could have stopped this. You knew the truck was coming too. You wanted Hannah to see it. You invited her. And you knew his truck was coming at 10. Dana opened her mouth, then closed it. She had invited Hannah because she thought our daughter would calm me down. She had kept Eric's move because she thought he would still move in. Her own two plans had collided in the driveway. By Monday, half the people we knew had heard some version of what happened. I know because messages started arriving. Melissa sent one that said she was sorry and hoped we could both avoid doing permanent damage while emotions were high. Tom called me after work. He was careful at first. Then he said, I don't condone what Dana did. Whenever somebody begins a sentence that way, the next word is almost always but. But I think you are making this nuclear. I leaned back in my office chair. The gouge from Wednesday was still on the corner of my desk. What exactly did I make nuclear? You canceled Nashville. I declined a work assignment. After finding out. Yes. And then you let Hannah walk into that whole moving thing. I didn't invite Hannah. There was silence. Dana said. I know what Dana said. Tom sighed. Mark, I am trying to help. I know. Then don't make every decision about punishing her. That irritated me more than I expected. I am trying to deal with a divorce, Tom, not launch a missile. He laughed weakly. I didn't. I didn't book the first truck. I didn't book the second. I didn't tell Eric I had agreed to a separation. I didn't tell my daughter. I was leaving the family. If you want to help, start by keeping the verbs attached to the people who did them. Tom was quiet. Fair enough. It was not an apology, but it was enough to end the call. That evening, Hannah texted me. I don't want to be evidence in your divorce. I read it twice. Then I called her. She answered reluctantly. I wasn't going to make you evidence. It feels like both of you want me to confirm your version. Then please stop telling me things about Mom. I almost defended myself. Instead, I said, okay. She was silent. I mean it, I said. You know enough. Anything else belongs between your mother and me. Thank you. You are still allowed to ask me questions, I know. And you are still allowed to love her. Her voice got smaller. I do. I know. We talked about Logan for another 5 minutes. Nothing important, which was exactly why it felt important. The next morning, I called a family law attorney a colleague had used after his divorce. Her name was Karen Whitmore. She listened to the broad facts, asked about the house, accounts, retirement plans, and the kids. Don't make property decisions because you are angry, she said. Don't empty accounts. And if your goal is to keep your adult children out of the conflict, keep them out. I've already made a mess of that. Then stop making more. I liked her because she did not tell me how to win. She told me what not to make worse. I asked about the house. Can Dana keep it? Maybe. That depends on your total settlement, financing, income, retirement assets, and what the two of you negotiate. Don't decide that over the phone with me today. Can I force her out? That is the kind of question angry people ask before they realize they still have to live with the answer. Point taken. If the marriage is over, figure out where you want to live, not where she wants you to live, where you want to live. That sentence stayed with me. 2 days later, I looked at my first apartment. It was in Middletown, 15 minutes from the house and close enough to work that my commute would actually improve. 2 bedrooms, nothing special, gray carpet, a small balcony facing a parking lot. The leasing agent apologized for the second bedroom being small. I looked into it and thought about Logan coming home from school. I thought about Hannah needing somewhere to sit without feeling like she was choosing one parent. It is fine, I said. I signed the lease the next afternoon. When I told Dana, she looked relieved. Actually, relieved. So you are moving? Yes. When? 2 weeks. She nodded slowly. I think that is best. I almost asked for whom. I didn't. That question had already been answered. The move happened on a Tuesday morning. I hired a different company. When the foreman arrived, he handed me a clipboard. Everything on the list goes. I looked at the office. The same desk, the same chair, the same red toolbox, the Bengals photograph. This time I had made the list. Dana stayed upstairs for most of it. At one point she came down and watched 2 movers carry my desk through the front door. I never wanted it to happen like this, she said. I looked at her. Neither did I. That was all. I did not need a speech. By noon, my things were in a place I had chosen. That night, the apartment sounded empty. No refrigerator hum, I recognized. No footsteps upstairs. No Dana moving around the bathroom. I sat on the floor because the sofa had not arrived yet, and ate takeout from the carton. Nobody in that apartment was waiting for me to make the next problem disappear. It was lonely. It was also quiet. For a few weeks, Dana seemed to believe the worst had passed. We communicated through short texts about bills and mail. Logan split his visits between us, while Hannah kept more distance. Eric and Dana were still together, but he never moved into the house. His furniture stayed in storage. About a month after I moved, he called me again. I almost rejected it. Then I answered, What now? I need one answer. I told you before I am not helping you with Dana. This is about the house. That got my attention. What about it? Did you ever tell her you would let her keep it? I sat up. Number? Did you ever tell her you wouldn't ask for your share of the equity? Number. He was quiet. Why? Because she told me you wouldn't make the house an issue. She said you cared more about keeping things stable for the kids. The kids are 22 and 19. I know. Did she tell you I was giving her the house? Not exactly. What exactly? That you'd work something out because you don't care that much about money. I gave him a dry laugh. I care when somebody spends mine before asking. Eric exhaled. Yeah. Why are you asking me? Because she is talking about refinancing. Then talk to her. I am. Good. I started to hang up, he said. Mark, what? I know I don't get to complain about being lied to. No, you don't. But I am starting to understand that every future she described to me required you to agree to something you had never agreed to. I looked around my apartment. The desk was against the wall now. The Bengals photograph sat on top because I still had not hung it. You are learning. He didn't like that. Neither did I. We ended the call. The house became the next problem because Math did not care about romantic plans. We had bought it 17 years earlier. There was still about $168,000 on the mortgage. But the house was worth somewhere around $445,000, depending on the appraisal and what a buyer would actually pay. That meant there was real equity. It also meant one of us could not simply declare the other one gone and keep everything else unchanged. Karen walked me through possibilities. A buyout, offsetting against other assets, a refinance, a sale. Do not become attached to one answer yet, she told me. I don't care which one. Good Dana might. She did. At our first serious settlement discussion, Dana was immediate. I want the house. Karen was there with me. Dana had her own attorney, nobody yelled. Her attorney asked how she intended to handle the buyout. Dana said there were options. Her attorney asked whether she had lender approval to refinance. Not yet. She mentioned retirement assets. Her attorney reminded her that moving large pieces around created other trade-offs. Dana looked at me. You don't need the house. I know. Then why make this difficult? I am not. You could leave your equity in it for a few years. For what? For stability. For who? Her attorney shifted in her chair. Dana said, for the kids. I stared at her. Hannah has her own apartment. Logan lives at school. It is still their home. Then ask them if they want us to stay married to a mortgage for them. Her face changed. Don't bring them into this. I didn't. That ended the subject for the day. A week later, Hannah called me. Mom says you want to sell the house. I said selling is one option. She says she wants to keep it. She can try. Are you going to stop her? If she can afford a fair settlement and refinance it, no. There was a pause. She told me keeping it is important for me and Logan. Hannah, I am going to keep my promise. I am not going to argue your mother's case through you. I know. Do you want the house kept for you? Number, then tell her that if you want, or don't. I already did. What did you say? I told her not to use this as a reason. I did not smile, but something in me loosened. Okay. 2 days later, Dana showed up at my apartment. She had never been there before. I opened the door and did not invite her in immediately. What do you need? Can we talk? About the house. I stepped aside. She walked in and looked around. Her eyes landed on the desk. The gouge was still visible. You kept it. It is a desk. You could have bought a new one. I could have. She sat in the chair by the window. I stayed standing. Eric thinks I am asking too much of him. I said nothing. He says the house is between you and me. He is right. He was supposed to live there. That was your plan. Our plan. I looked at her. She corrected herself. Mine and Eric's better. She rubbed her hands together. If he moved in, the expenses would be manageable. Then ask him to move in. He doesn't want to while the divorce is going on. That sounds like something you should discuss with Eric. Her eyes flashed. You really can just turn it off, can't you? What? 21 years. I didn't turn off 21 years. I took a breath. I care. I just don't think caring means I finance the version of my replacement you planned. She stood. Everything is money to you now. I almost reminded her, who had booked a storage unit for my life. Instead, I said, "Number, that is why I turned down Nashville." She stared at me. For once, she had no quick answer. Then she said, "Eric wanted a new life with me. Then build one. He doesn't understand what that means." I thought about his phone call. Maybe he understood it better now than she did. Dana left angry. The next time I heard from Eric was 3 weeks later, a text. "I am out. Not your problem. I know. Just thought you should know. I signed a lease on my own place today." I read it twice. Then I deleted it. I did not call Dana. I did not celebrate. The relationship had lasted almost a year in secret and barely 2 months in daylight. That did not feel like a victory. It felt like gravity. Dana called me the next evening. Her voice was controlled. "Yes." "What did he say?" "That he was out." "Anything else?" "Nothing that matters." She was quiet. "Then, he thinks I wanted him to replace you." I almost said he was scheduled to move into my house 48 hours after my things went into storage. Instead, I waited. Dana continued. "He says every time we talk about the future, I talk about keeping the house, keeping the neighborhood, keeping everything normal. Is he wrong?" I wanted stability. You wanted continuity. What is the difference? Stability is building something that works. You wanted the same life with a different man in it. Dana said, "We made that life together." "Yes. So why should I lose all of it because I made one terrible choice? 11 months isn't one choice." "I know." Her voice broke slightly. "I know." That was the first time in weeks I heard grief instead of strategy. It almost made things harder. A few weeks later, we listed the house. Dana had tried the refinance route. First, it did not work in a way she was comfortable accepting. She could have gutted retirement savings, taken on more debt, or forced herself into a monthly payment that left almost no room for anything else. Her own attorney advised her to stop treating keeping the house as a moral victory, so we agreed to sell. The house looked strange during showings, too clean, half-empty, staged with a bowl of fake lemons, because the realtor said it made the kitchen feel warm. Warm had never been the problem. We accepted a fair offer after 3 weeks. By then, Dana and I could sit in the same room without fighting. That did not mean reconciliation. It meant exhaustion had finally done what maturity could not. The night before closing, I went over to get the last box from the garage. Dana was there alone. Most of the furniture was gone. The living room echoed. My old office was completely empty. She stood in the doorway while I picked up a box of extension cords and old service manuals. "You didn't have to destroy everything," she said. I put the box down. "There are sentences you wait months to answer. That was not one of them. I didn't destroy your plan. I stopped participating in it." She looked tired, not defeated, just tired. "If you'd gone to Nashville, none of this would have happened this way." I stared at her. That sentence told me a small piece of the original plan was still alive in her head. "If I'd gone to Nashville, your plan would have worked better." That is not what I meant. It is. I mean, we would have had time. Everybody would have adjusted. To what? To us ending. Us ending wasn't the part you hid. She looked away. I continued. "You could have told me the marriage was over. You could have chosen Eric. You could have filed for divorce. I would have hated it, but those were your choices." She folded her arms. "But you didn't do that. You packed my office. You rented storage. You scheduled another man to move in. Then you told our daughter and our friends I was the one choosing to leave. I was trying to make it easier. For you, for everyone." I shook my head. You were trying to remove the part where anybody got to object." Her eyes filled. "I knew you would be angry. That wasn't the same as believing I'd say no." She did not answer. I thought of Eric at the coffee shop. "He doesn't blow up his life. That is not who he is." I said. "You thought I'd absorb it." Dana looked at me for a long time. Then she sat down on the floor against the wall because there was no chair left in the room. "You always did." There was no accusation in it. That made it worse. College emergencies. Broken water heaters. Her father's hospital bills, work crises, teenage arguments. Every time something cracked, I had been the one who believed love meant finding a way to hold the pieces together. Until one day she mistook that for an unlimited warranty. I picked up the box. Until I didn't. She nodded. That was the closest we ever came to agreeing about why our marriage ended. The divorce was final a few months after the house sold. Dana received her share of the equity. The rest of the settlement was unremarkable. We divided retirement assets and the ordinary things people collect in 21 years. Photographs, tools, furniture, even a dining table neither of us actually wanted. Eric disappeared from my life completely. I heard through mutual friends that Dana moved into a townhouse on the other side of Louisville, smaller than our old house. Perfectly nice. She kept her job. She kept friends. She kept a relationship with both kids. What she lost was the transition she had counted on. The house. Eric. The story where I had volunteered to leave. The assumption that every decision could be made first and explained to me afterward. I lost things too. Nashville never came back. Ramirez took the assignment and did well enough that 6 months later he got the larger regional role Greg and I had once discussed. When the announcement went out, I closed the email and sat with it for a while. I was happy for him. I was also angry, not at Ramirez, not even completely at Dana. At the fact that there had been no version of that week where every choice came free. I had decided not to leave my life on somebody else's schedule. That decision cost me something. I could live with that. Logan came over whenever he was home from school. He claimed the small second bedroom even though there was barely room between the bed and the dresser. Hannah took longer. For a few months, every conversation between us had a careful edge. Then one Friday afternoon she texted, "Can I come by tomorrow?" I stared at the message longer than I should have. Of course, she came with coffee. We spent most of the afternoon hanging shelves because she said my apartment still looked like a furnished rental. At one point she picked up the framed Bengals photo from the top of my desk. "You still haven't hung this." "I've been busy." "You've been here 6 months." "I've been very busy." She rolled her eyes. Then she noticed the gouge in the desk. "That happened with the first movers, didn't it?" "Yay, you could replace it." "That is what your mother said." Hannah froze. I smiled. "Relax, it is a desk." She laughed. So did I. We hung the photograph above it. After she left, I sat down in the old chair with the cracked armrest. The apartment was still smaller than the house. The career opportunity was still gone. My marriage was still over. Nothing about the ending made what happened good. But the room was mine. The desk was there because I had put it there. The photograph was on the wall because Hannah and I had chosen the spot. The second bedroom was ready because I wanted my kids to know there was always somewhere for them. For the first time in a long time, nothing around me had been placed there because somebody else had already decided where I belonged. If you enjoy stories where betrayal finally meets consequences, subscribe for the next one. This is Blood Never Lies.